As usual, the gods of randomness decide the fate of this episode. And we're gonna start with NeoFS this time, but before we do that, I want to cover an additional topic that's actually on the intersection between the NeoFS and NeoGo. So let's do that. Over the course of the previous year, we have slowly opened up many of our private repositories. We had some tens of them just a year ago. Some were proof of concept, some were tools that we use for various services. In any event, we had a set of repositories that were not exposed to the outside world. Not anymore. I'm glad to say that we have sorted through all of them, and at this point, an NeoSPCC dev organization has 0 private repositories. Every repository is public, can be viewed, reviewed, forked. We accept issues and PRs as usual. Except for archived ones, of course, we do have some that we don't plan to develop actively. I've talked about many of these repositories previously as we have opened them, so now I will just briefly mention some from the last pack. Let's start with Monza, an application that allows to index and search through notifications in N3 chains. It's mostly useful for NeoFS networks, but can help with regular ones as well. Works via standard JSON RPC API with local caching. So it's also a nice example of NeoGo API's use. At the moment, it provides some things regular nodes can do, but eventually some of this functionality might be integrated into the node itself. Next one is NeoFS SFTP Gateway. We have often talked that we have one, but it was always private. So effectively, no one could even see that, let alone try using it in any way. So there are limitations and no problems with the way it works, all documented of course, and we don't currently have any plans for its development. But it can do some things for you, and in case you are interested or it fits your needs, it's there. And now about more active stuff. We have opened up a Neo Exporter tool that you can use to export various data from Neo N3 networks into Prometheus metrics. Then these metrics can be scraped, stored, analyzed by other tools like Victoria Metrics or visualized using Grafana or anything like that. Initially, this tool was made to specifically monitor NeoFS networks, and it still has some special support for NeoFS contracts like exposing network map metadata. But I'd like to highlight its generic N3 capabilities. You can set it up to watch over some NEP17 token balance for some address and get a data feed for it, and then compatible tooling can visualize it or alert you based on your rules for metric changes. We use this tool extensively for monitoring, and we will be adding more features to it in future. We are busy fleshing out several protocol updates for NeoFS node, and the first one is a better structure for big objects. Next is extended search and EACL capabilities, and the last track is a better replication API. That's a quite number of things we are doing at once, and before we push any of them out into production, there will also be a release mostly dealing with fixes of various kinds. The most interesting of those are related to container deletion handling and notary request processing. Some performance optimizations are in the process as well, as usual. As we have talked in the previous episode, we are working on bringing HTTP gateway functionality into the REST gateway. And I'm glad to say that it's almost there. The plan is to have a release, try it out in various ways, fix anything that can be a compatibility problem, then move our services to using REST only, and then archive and forget about HTTP gateway. This way we're gonna have 2 main gateways provided, S3 and REST, with REST being the main recommended way to integrate various distributed applications. Previously, it wasn't sufficient alone, now it is, and we are at the polishing stage. Likely, some functionality of it is going to be extended in the future as well, although current API already covers most of real needs. Now let's move to the blockchain department. 2 releases of NeoGo were made, one rolling out new features for subscriptions, CLI and testing framework, and the other just fixing a mainnet state difference. Please upgrade to the latest and greatest as usual. We have also added an AMD 64 binary for macOS for your convenience. Currently, we are mostly concentrated on our test suite here, and I should know that we have almost 1500 tests in NeoGo. The number that actually surprised me last time I checked I thought we have something like 300-500 of them, but no. We have way more to get a code coverage of 85%. So there are some null problems there and we are solving them now. We are watching C# development closely as usual also, and there are PRs for some protocols updates already, but those will be finalized closer to 3.7 C# release. Other than that, we'll be improving our APIs for D-app backends. No other big changes planned there, but we have a list of smaller things to polish. It's time to talk a bit about our involvement into the NeoX, also known as Bane, project. We are working on consensus part of it. If you have used it or watched over the pre-alpha or alpha networks, they both had a proper dBFT consensus used for their blocks. The most recent test network has a 7 consensus nodes and is pretty close to what's going to be the final production setup. Still, we also have a long list of improvements for our current integration, and it's lacking some checks. To be fair, less and less so with every day. At this point, almost all of them are solved. And it's lacking integration with governance contracts that themselves are not yet finalized. The project itself progresses quickly, and NeoSPCC is only a part of it, but it all shapes out nicely, so you can expect more interesting testnets soon. A related work that we are currently doing is refining and polishing our dBFT library. Not from the protocol perspective, because the protocol is dBFT 2.0 and it's compatible with the C# implementation, but from the API and dependencies point of view. It's ironic that this library came to be a separate repository and not a part of NeoGo pretty much accidentally. Few people may remember that the very first NeoFS implementation had an internal consensus that was dBFT, but with a different data exchange. So the library was born as an intersection of NeoGo and NeoFS. Then NeoFS transitioned into using complete NeoGo with proper blocks, transactions, and NeoGo itself stayed as the only library user. At some point, we even discussed its complete integration. But when the Bane project has started, this library turned out to be exactly what was needed. Pure dBFT implementation in Go language that can be integrated into just about any project. So we took it, added it into Go Ethereum, and it works there in test networks. This work has shown some potential for API improvement though, not a huge one. Mostly dropping some obsolete duplicating things and dependencies, but still we want to do this before we are to move to the next step of the NeoX journey. This step is related to the anti-MEV feature of NeoX, and it's going to require dBFT protocol modification. So it will be very interesting. Can't give all of the details right now because some of them are still being discussed, but there is a nicely designed scheme already made in collaboration between Neo Research and NGD, and also there is a proof of concept code as well. We'll be working on it soon. Stay tuned.